Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I was 10 years old when it happened. It was 2012, and my family had just moved to a small town in northern Missouri called Redmond. It was the kind of place where everyone worked at the animal feed factory, the wood-cutting place, or the McDonald's that was open all day and night on Main Street. That McDonald's wasn't anything special, unless you were a kid with nothing to do and parents who worked 2 jobs. We were a big family. 7 of us were squeezed into an old rental house on the edge of Redmond. My dad, Gary, had lost his job in St. Louis, and Mum, Rena, took a night job at the gas station nearby. My older brother and sister did what they could to help. My sister, Janelle, who was 16, worked at that McDonald's every night after school. My brother Derek, who was 13, watched the younger kids, me, Maya. I'm telling this story, and our baby brother, Toby. We didn't have much money, but we got by until the night he came. The house itself should have been a warning sign. It was old with cracked paint on the walls and wooden steps that bent and made noise when you walked on them. The windows were the old kind with bent glass and no good locks. The basement didn't even have a real floor, just dirt and spiderwebs. So thick, they looked like cotton candy. No one ever went down there. We called it the pit. And then there was the door. The basement door had a big metal lock, not like a baby gate or a closet lock. This was a real iron lock, the kind you'd see on barn doors. It locked from the outside, like someone who lived here before us wanted to make sure something stayed locked in that basement. My dad didn't worry about it. Probably just a scared old owner, he said, putting a new lock on the front door. The place will be fine. But it wasn't fine. Since I was the youngest girl, I shared a room with Derek. He didn't like it. I liked sleeping with a small light on, just a cheap nightlight that plugged into the wall, shaped like a cartoon bear. It was for little kids, sure, but the dark made me feel scared. Derek always turned it off once he thought I was sleeping, and I'd always wake up and sneak over to turn it back on. Our room looked out at the backyard, which meant every night I had to walk past the kitchen and the big window with no curtains to get to the bathroom. Everyone who's ever lived in a scary neighborhood knows what I'm about to say. You don't look out windows at night, and you sure don't like walking past them. It was a Friday night in February, very cold outside. Janelle had just come home from her job at McDonald's. She was shivering and tired. She threw her jacket on the floor and fell down on the couch. Dad was already sleeping upstairs. Mum wouldn't be home until morning. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up because I had to pee. I tried to hold it. I always did, hoping I'd fall back asleep. But I really had to go. I didn't want to, but I crawled out of bed and walked quietly into the hallway. Everything was quiet, too quiet. I walked past the kitchen, doing my usual thing of walking fast and not looking at the windows. But then something made me stop. Heard tapping, tap, tap, tap. I stopped walking, eyes looking at the glass. There, with his hands pressed against the back window, was a man. He looked rough, like someone who'd been living outside in the woods. Dirty clothes, messy hair, a thick grey beard. He put his hands around his eyes and looked inside like he was looking for someone special. His eyes didn't move around, they were focused, like he knew who lived here. I walked backwards slowly, my heart beating fast. I hid behind the couch, where Janelle was still sleeping, trying not to breathe. Was I dreaming? I pinched my arm hard. No, I wasn't dreaming. Then I heard it, the sound that changed everything. The back door lock turned. He had a key. He opened the door slowly, like he'd done it 100 times before. Calm, like this was his house. He walked in and closed the door behind him without making a sound. He was tall, easily 6 feet and 2 inches, and wore a torn coat and a hoodie underneath. A black baseball cap covered most of his face. He didn't even look around. He went straight to the kitchen pantry, opened it, grabbed a bag of chips, and started eating like he lived here, Dad. Without stopping, he turned and unlocked the basement door. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't move. I could only watch as he opened the basement door, walked inside, and slowly pulled it shut behind him. I stayed behind the couch, shaking like a leaf. It didn't make sense. How did he have a key? Why did he go to the basement? Had he done this before? I needed help. Derek had a phone. I didn't. I started crawling toward our bedroom when I stopped again. I heard footsteps from the basement coming. Back up. I looked around and saw my little brother's blanket on a chair. I grabbed it, wrapped it around my feet, and started pulling myself across the floor to make less noise. I reached the door. I locked it shut just as the man got to the top. Boom, the door shook. He hit it once, hard enough to make the walls shake. I jumped back and ran straight to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife I could find, and ran upstairs. Dad, wake up. He sat up fast. What, Maya? What's wrong? There's a man in the basement. I pushed the knife into his hands, scared and shaking. He had a key. He came in and went downstairs. He was trying to get out. My dad didn't waste any time. He used to be in the army, was a big guy, always ready for a fight. Stay here, he said in a deep voice. Gary, what's going on? My mum said from the doorway. She must have come home early. There's someone in the house. I grabbed her hand. He's in the basement. He tried to get out. I locked it just in time. My mum's eyes got wide. Where's Janelle? Still on the couch. We ran downstairs just as the basement door broke open. The man ran out and jumped on my dad, slamming him to the floor. Gary, Mum screamed. They wrestled, my dad trying to hold him down, the man fighting like a wild animal. My brain stopped working. I ran back to the kitchen and grabbed another knife, my hands shaking. I didn't think, I just moved. I ran back, heart pounding. Give it to me, my mum shouted, taking the knife from my shaking hand. Before I could even blink, she stabbed him in the back. The man screamed, a horrible hurt sound. My dad flipped him over, holding him face down, locking his arms. Then we heard the police sirens. The police ran in. My brother and sister came into the room, screaming at the blood on the floor. Janelle covered her mouth. Derek pulled me into a hug as I started to cry. The man didn't die. He was taken to the hospital, then arrested. He had no ID, no address. The police couldn't even figure out where he came from. But the part that still scares me, he had a key, an exact copy of our backdoor key. My dad promised he changed the locks when we moved in. We never gave a spare key to anyone. No house sellers, no neighbors, nobody. The police checked his fingerprints. Nothing came up. They asked my parents if they'd ever seen him before. They hadn't. And the scariest part, when they checked the basement, they found a sleeping bag, empty food containers, water bottles, and one crumpled McDonald's receipt from 3 days before it happened. From the place where Janelle worked. He had been living there in our basement, eating our food, watching us, listening, waiting. We'll never know for how long. We moved out the next week. Janelle quit her job at McDonald's. None of us could sleep. For months, to this day, I still check every door, every lock. I don't trust basements. And I never walk past windows with no curtains at night. But there's one thing I'll never forget. My mum didn't let me stab that man. She looked me right in the eyes and made the choice to carry that heavy feeling for me. And I'm thankful, because even though I still have bad dreams about the man with the key, at least I don't have blood on my hands. It started with fries and a dare. My name is Isaac, and this happened when I was 17. It was early September, still warm enough to sweat through your shirt in the sun, but with just enough cool air in the shade to remind you that summer was ending. I was part of a local theater club for kids in Oak Ridge, a quiet city outside Milwaukee. We'd been practicing all morning for an upcoming comedy show, the kind where parents clap too loud and half the people watching don't understand the jokes. That Saturday, we took a break for lunch at noon. My friend Noah, who was loud, confident, and always the one making jokes, even when they weren't funny, turned to me with that familiar smile and said, "Bro, McDonald's run." There was one just 10 minutes down Riverbend Avenue. I shrugged. Yeah, I'm really hungry. Neither of us had eaten all day, and McDonald's was close, fast, and cheap. 3 things you always look for when you're 17 and don't have much money. We got into Noah's rusty black car, with windows that were stuck halfway down and played music way too loud. I remember laughing, sticking my hand out the window to feel the wind, and forgetting about everything else for a while. Practice stress, college applications, my part-time job at the gas station. All of it went away for that short drive. I wish it had stayed that way. When we pulled into the McDonald's parking lot, it wasn't too busy. A couple of families were sitting at the tables near the windows, and a guy in a pickup truck was just leaving the drive-thru. I didn't notice anything weird at first. It was just another fast food stop. We went in through the front door, and as soon as we walked inside, the cold air conditioning hit us. Noah made a loud sound. "Dude, this place is heaven." We walked up to the counter and got in line. There were 2 people ahead of us, an older man with no hair who looked like someone's grumpy grandfather, and behind him, a younger guy, maybe in his 20s, wearing a dark blue hoodie, loose grey sweatpants, and slides with socks. He had a small white grocery bag in one hand and was looking at his phone with the other. Nothing about him seemed dangerous, but the way he kept looking up, not looking at the menu or the cashier, but looking at the people inside, made my stomach feel weird. You know that quiet alarm you get inside when something's wrong, but you can't explain it? That's what this felt like. I leaned toward Noah and whispered, "You see that guy?" He looked where I was looking and whispered back, "What about him?" "Nothing, just ... I don't know." The man stepped out of line and walked to a side door, the one near the eating area on the opposite side from the main entrance. It wasn't the door customers usually used. He opened it halfway, looked back at us for too long, and then walked outside. We moved forward and ordered 2 chicken sandwiches, large fries, and drinks. Noah added an Oreo ice cream because, of course, he did. After getting our tray, Noah pointed to a booth in the corner right beside that same side door the man had left through. I didn't want to sit there. "You okay?" Noah asked. "Yeah," I lied, and we sat down. I sat facing the parking lot. Noah had his back to it, as we unwrapped our burgers. I noticed a red bike leaning against the side of the building just outside the window. It hadn't been there when we got there. My brain started putting pieces together. I took a sip of my drink and tried to relax, but then I looked up and I froze. The man was back. He was standing outside the window, just standing, not moving, not blinking. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring right at Noah. His eyes were wide, red, almost yellow around the edges. They had this wild, animal-like shine to them. And that white grocery bag, it was hanging over his shoulder now, and underneath it, clearly visible through the side of his hoodie, was a holder. A big knife handle stuck out of it. I couldn't breathe. My voice dropped to a whisper. "Noah, don't look behind you." "What?" "There's a man outside. He's watching you, and he's got a big knife." Noah didn't panic. He just stopped eating and looked at me with wide eyes. "What? Don't look. He's right behind you, outside the glass." I watched his face change from confused to scared. He put his burger down slowly and whispered, "What do we do?" "I don't know." We sat there, frozen. The guy just kept standing there, staring in. His breath started making fog on the glass. Then he moved, not fast, slow, like he had all the time in the world. He walked around the side of the building and disappeared. I turned my head around to the other side of the restaurant. A few seconds later, there he was again, face pressed against another window farther down, still watching us, still smiling, still holding that bag, still with the knife handle sticking out like it belonged there. I stood up. My knees were shaking. I walked up to the counter and whispered to a young worker, probably in college, "Hey, there's a guy outside. He has a weapon. He's been watching us through the windows." The worker looked up without caring much. Okay, I'll let my manager know." I went back to Noah, heart beating fast. "He's not doing anything. What do we do?" "Wait," I whispered, "and stay calm." Then I had an idea. I took out my phone and held it up toward Noah, pretending to take a picture of him. He understood fast. and leaned in, smiling like a goof. I moved the camera just right to catch the man in the background. Click. I checked the picture. Perfect shot. Him at the window. Knife handle, clear as day. I got up again and walked to a nearby table where a woman and her 2 kids were sitting. I leaned in quietly. "Ma'am, there's a man outside. He has a weapon, and he's been watching us." She looked out the window, gasped, and pulled her children closer. Now, people were noticing. I told another guy at a nearby table. He looked and stood up, backing away from the window. The feeling in the air changed like someone had taken all the air out of the room. Then, I noticed something scary. The guy had disappeared again. I looked out every window, nothing. "Where'd he go?" I whispered. Noah tightened his jaw. Maybe he left, but I wasn't sure. Something told me he hadn't gone far. I waited a full minute before pulling out my phone. Again, this time, I called 911. The moment I hit call, something moved outside. He was back. He walked out from behind the trash area, by the drive-thru. But now, he was walking toward the side door, the one right next to our table. My heart dropped. Noah whispered, "Is he coming in?" "I don't know." We both sat there, unable to move. Then, just a few feet away from the door, he stopped, looked at the window one last time, then turned. He walked over to that red bike, got on it, and rode off. Slowly, like he wanted us to see him go. He disappeared behind the hardware store next door. I couldn't breathe until he was gone. I stayed on the phone with the 911 person. I told them everything, the knife, what he looked like, the pictures I had taken. She thanked me, said a police car would be there in a few minutes, and asked us to stay there. Noah went to get the manager. They finally took it seriously when we showed them the photo. We waited for what felt like forever, watching every car that passed. My fries had gotten cold. I didn't touch the rest of my food. Police finally showed up about 12 minutes later. They took my statement, looked at the photo, and told me the truth. He hadn't really broken any laws. Unless he'd shown the weapon or come into the building, he hadn't done anything wrong. But they still looked around the area. They said they'd warn him and ban him from the place if they found him. They didn't. They called us 20 minutes later and said they couldn't find anyone who looked like him. But it was probably safe for us to leave, so we did. We got back in Noah's car, quiet for the first few minutes. Then Noah let out a breath and said, "Dude, what was that?" We laughed, not because it was funny, but because we didn't know what else to do. It's been a year since that happened. I'm 18 now. I still have that picture. I've showed it to maybe 5 people total. Every time I look at it, I get the same sinking feeling. That man, he wasn't just walking around. He wasn't just staring. He had a plan. He was watching, waiting. And if I hadn't called 911 when I did, if he had walked inside, I don't even want to think about it. Noah and I still joke about it sometimes. We call him the knife guy. But deep down, I think we both know we came too close to something that day. Something really, really bad. And the worst part, he's still out there. Maybe watching someone else now through some other window. I was 10 years old when it happened. Back then, I lived in East Los Angeles with my big family. My parents, 2 younger brothers and sisters. My cousin Leo, and my uncle Rudy, all under one small roof. Our house was on the edge of an older neighborhood where broken sidewalks buckled from tree roots, stray dogs ran the alleys, and nothing ever really felt new, even if it was. My cousin Leo was 13. He had the usual older cousin energy, confident, reckless, and just cool enough to make me believe he knew everything. I looked up to him. If Leo told me something was safe, I believed it. If he told me to jump, I jumped. No questions. It was a Saturday, in late July, that slow, sticky kind of summer afternoon when nothing much happens, but your skin still sweats. We'd already spent hours playing video games in the living room until the power flickered and Uncle Rudy yelled at us to go outside before your eyeballs melt into your skulls. So we did. With no real plan, Leo suggested we walk to the McDonald's on Hillcrest in Maple, about 10 blocks away. It had just reopened after being fixed up, and in our world, that was huge. New booths, new soda machines, and air conditioning. God, the air conditioning was amazing compared to our hot house. "Come on," Leo said, grabbing his wallet with the few crumpled bills inside. "We'll get a burger and split a sundae or something." Didn't care what we ate. I just wanted out of the house, away from the heat and boredom. We took the side streets, cutting through backyards and jumping over low fences. That was just how we moved, and on the way, we passed it. That warehouse, it was hard to miss, sitting behind an old chain-link fence covered in graffiti and half fallen down. It looked like it had been forgotten by the world. People said it used to be a clothing factory back in the 1960s, then maybe a recycling plant. After that, no one really knew, but everybody had a story about it. "Don't look at it too long," Leo whispered as we passed. "That place is cursed." I laughed. "You're just saying that?" He didn't laugh with me. "No, for real. There were these two teenagers back in the 1990s. They dared each other to spend the night there. They never came out. Police found their bikes. Out front, nothing else. Not even sleeping bags. Did they check inside? They tried, but something happened to the guy who went in." "What?" Leo looked back at the building like it could hear us. "They say he tore out his own tongue. He came out screaming. Couldn't speak again." I was quiet after that. We made it to McDonald's and ordered one cheeseburger meal and a hot fudge sundae to split. We took our tray to the window seats because that's what we always did. I remember biting into that burger like it was the best thing I'd ever tasted. Then I looked outside and saw something in the warehouse window. It was just a flicker at first, a shadow moving across the broken glass. I blinked, thinking it was just a trick of light, heat waves, or a bird. But then I saw it again. It was watching us. The window was maybe 40 yards away from the McDonald's, but I could feel it. Like how you just know someone is staring at you, even before you look. This time I could make out the shape. Two figures side by side, standing perfectly still in that broken window. They weren't human. Not completely. They had big, round bodies, like swollen chests, and their skin looked cracked and leathery, almost like burned rubber. Their backs curved outward in jagged humps, like they were wearing broken shells. And their eyes, God, their eyes. They glowed red, pulsing like dying fire. Their mouths hung open in wide, jagged slits, almost like a snapping turtle's jaw had been carved into a skull. They didn't move. They didn't blink. Just stared. Then one of them smiled. That's when I dropped my burger. Leo cursed and stood up, pulling me away from the window. "Come on, we're leaving now." We walked fast, almost ran, but didn't say anything until we turned the corner and the warehouse was out of sight. I felt cold, not just scared, but sick, like something had passed through me, like the air around me had changed. "You saw it too, right?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Leo nodded. "Yeah, I saw them." We didn't go back to McDonald's that summer. Years passed. I turned 15, then 18. I moved out, started college, got a job at a small auto shop in Glendale. But I never forgot those glowing red eyes. I never forgot that feeling. I figured maybe one day I'd go back just to see if the place had been torn down or boarded up. But I never did until last year. It was Thanksgiving. I was back in East LA visiting family. Uncle Rudy had died, and we were all gathered at Grandma Rosa's house. She was getting old, her memory fading, but she still loved to talk. After dinner, she sat on the porch with a cigarette, staring out at the road. "You remember that old warehouse by the McDonald's?" she asked. My heart skipped. "Yeah, they used to say it was cursed." "You know why?" I shook my head. She breathed out slowly. "Because two men hanged themselves inside right after they opened the plant. They were brothers, immigrants, worked long hours, no pay. One day they just snapped, left a note on the wall written in something that wasn't ink." "What do you mean?" "It looked like blood," she said, her voice shaking slightly, but thicker, like tar. She flicked ash onto the ground. "No one bought the place after that," she said, "not even for storage. And you know what else? Sometimes people said they saw them in the window, just staring." I didn't say a word. I didn't tell her I'd seen them. Two, that Leo had. that they weren't just stories, because deep down, I already knew. I'd gone home that night and dug out my old sketchbook. On the last page, hidden behind years of doodles and school notes, was a rough pencil drawing I'd done when I was 10, of the warehouse, of those two figures, of their red glowing eyes and broken toothy mouths. I'd drawn it all, not from imagination, from memory. I haven't seen them since. But sometimes, when I drive through East LA at night, I keep my windows rolled up because I swear sometimes I feel like they're still watching me. And one day, they might not stay behind the glass. I never thought working a part-time job at McDonald's would leave a scar so deep it would follow me into adulthood, but here we are. My name's Ela, and this happened when I was 17. I had just gotten my driver's license and started working at the McDonald's 5 minutes away from my house in a suburb outside of Dayton, Ohio. To be honest, it wasn't my dream job, but it was easy. Money, and I needed to save up for college. I'd work the evening shifts after school and sometimes late on weekends if someone couldn't come in. The people were nice, mostly high school kids, like me and a couple of single moms who treated us like their own kids. The manager, Mrs. Parker, was in her 50s and very strict. But she had a soft spot for us if we did our jobs right. I should also mention that my grandmother, whom we all called Lola, had worked most of her life for a rich family back in upstate New York. She used to tell us these scary stories about the old mansion she worked in, creaky doors, old things that moved on their own, mirrors that showed faces that weren't there. But we always thought she was just messing with us for fun. At least I did, until this happened. The McDonald's I worked at wasn't one of those downtown ones with lots of people. It was tucked into a small strip next to a pharmacy and a laundromat. We weren't busy most nights. Just the occasional late-night drive-thru order or high school kids hanging around the booths. The restaurant closed its lobby at 11 p.m. But the drive-thru stayed open until midnight on weekends. We'd lock the front doors, turn off the lobby lights, and clean up the kitchen while the drive-thru workers stayed back. There were 4 of us working that Saturday night. Me, a guy named Travis who worked the grill, Rema who did drive-thru orders, and Carla who was in her 30s and usually did prep and cash register. Mrs. Parker had called out earlier that day because her grandson had a fever, so Carla was left in charge. Everything felt wrong that night. It started small. Around 10:45 p.m., we had our last dining customer, a teenage couple who left without finishing their fries. I was wiping down the tables near the window when I noticed someone standing at the entrance. They weren't knocking, just standing there. A woman. She had long dark hair, pale skin, and a heavy tan coat like the ones old women wear in the middle of winter. It was early September and really hot, even at night. I thought maybe the woman was homeless or on drugs. I looked at Carla. "Someone's at the door," I said. Carla looked over from the cash register and squinted. "Drive-thru, just ignore her. She's probably waiting for someone." I nodded, but something about how the woman was looking in, dead still like a store dummy, made me feel scared. 10 minutes went by, she was still there. But now there was someone. With her, another woman. Same coat, same blank stare. They stood next to each other, not talking, not even looking at each other, just staring through the glass right at me. I walked to the kitchen where Travis was cleaning the grill. "Hey man, there's 2 women just standing outside. Have you seen them?" He leaned over to look toward the windows. "Damn, that's creepy." "Think it's a joke?" "I don't know," I said. "But they've been standing there for a while. Maybe they want food," Rema said. "Tell them drive-thru is still open." I went back to the counter and waved toward the window, moving my mouth to say drive-thru. They didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even notice me. Around 11:05, Carla told me to start putting chairs on tables while she counted the money. I grabbed a chair near the door, and that's when I heard it. The sound of the front door unlocking. I froze. We were supposed to keep it locked. No one should have had the key except Carla and Mrs. Parker. "Did you just unlock the door?" I called out. Carla looked up from the cash register. "What, no?" I turned back just in time to see the door swing open. The 2 women stepped inside. No sound, no squeak from the door. Nothing, just the tap of their shoes on the floor. Rema poked her head from the kitchen. "Did you let them in?" "No." They walked straight toward me. I stumbled back behind the counter as Carla stepped forward. "Ma'am, you'll need to go through the drive-thru. The lobby is closed." No answer. The smiling one leaned over the counter, her hands folded neatly in front of her. "We're here to speak with the girl by the window." My blood went cold. "I was just wiping the tables," I said. "You can't be in here. You saw us first," the other woman said quickly. "So you must listen." Carla reached for her phone. "Okay, I'm calling the cops." The smiling woman's eyes locked on mine. "You should not have looked at us," she whispered. "Now you'll see what we see." Then she turned to Carla. "You should not have interrupted." And just like that, all the lights went out. Total darkness. We all screamed. Me, Rema, Travis. I heard Carla yelling into her phone, trying to call 911. Emergency lights came on after a few seconds. The dim red ones from the back hallway. That's when I saw them again. The two women were gone. But there was something else. Something by the soda machines. Like a third person crouched down and slowly standing up. Its skin looked wet like raw meat. And its eyes, no whites, just black. I turned and ran toward the back. Rema grabbed my arm and pulled me into the freezer. Travis and Carla followed, slamming the heavy metal door behind us. We were all breathing hard. I was crying. "What the hell was that?" Travis said, out of breath. "They didn't come in through the drive-thru," Rema whispered. "They just appeared." "We need to get out," Carla said, her voice shaking. "There's a back door, fire exit." But when Travis tried opening the freezer, it wouldn't move. The lock wasn't electronic. It wasn't supposed to lock from the outside. Then we heard the music, the McDonald's song, but slowed down, weird, playing through the ceiling speakers. We stayed inside for what felt like hours. When the lights came back, we opened the door. Slowly, everything looked normal again. The lobby was empty, tables and chairs untouched. The women gone. But written across the touchscreen by the front was a message written in ketchup. She opened the curtain. "Now we walk with her." I don't know what it meant. I didn't want to know. The cameras caught nothing. No sign of the women. No power outage. Nothing but fuzzy scream between 11:04 and 11:22. We all quit the next day. I've never eaten at McDonald's since. But sometimes, when I drive by the old building at night, I swear I see two women in tan coats standing by the window. Still smiling, still waiting. It was supposed to be an easy shift. That's what I kept telling myself. I was 18. My name's Alina, and back in 2009, I was working part-time at a McDonald's at the edge of Bramblewood, a quiet little town between farmland and pine forests in northern Oregon. It wasn't the busiest place in the world. Half our customers were either long-haul truckers, who'd pulled off the state highway, or locals, who basically lived off the dollar menu. That evening, it was cold, mid-November, and the kind of cold that made your nose sting the moment you stepped. Outside, we had the heat on inside, the usual smell of fryer oil and cheap coffee hanging in the air. It was a closing shift, which meant I'd be stuck there from 4 p.m. till midnight. I remember this night because of how normal it started. My mum had dropped me off at work early. We only had one car and she needed it for her second job, cleaning offices downtown. I didn't mind. I liked being early, using the break room to do some college application stuff and eat a fish sandwich before things picked up. My manager that night was Carla, -26, sharp, no nonsense, the kind of woman who could stop a fight in the lobby with just a look. We also had Jamal in the kitchen. He was always humming Drake songs off-key. And Rita, who worked drive-thru like she was born with a headset glued to her ear. I'm mentioning them because later they were the only ones who saw what I saw. At least for a moment, it was about 8:15 p.m. when it started getting strange. Bramblewood's McDonald's was never busy after 8. We had maybe 2 tables filled. One young couple with a screaming toddler and some old man eating a plain cheeseburger like it was fancy food. I was wiping down trays at the self-serve ketchup station when the door creaked open. 2 women walked in. That wasn't weird, not by itself. but everything about them was wrong. They were dressed in long black dresses that looked straight out of an old movie, high collars, lace sleeves, skirts that touched their shoes. One of them had her hair up in a tight bun. The other wore hers braided over her shoulder. Their skin looked powdery, pale, like the color of paper, and their eyes were dark, almost sunken. They didn't say a word. I remember glancing at Carla, expecting her to greet them or offer a menu, something, but she froze, just stared. Hi. Welcome to McDonald's, I said, unsure if they were part of a show or maybe just weird tourists. Eating here or taking out? The one with the bun tilted her head. They stepped further inside, gliding more than walking. And here's the thing that really messed me up later. I didn't hear their shoes on the tiles. Not a scuff, not a tap. Carla finally moved. Come on in, it's cold out, she said, forcing a smile. You two need a minute to decide. Still no response. They just stood by the entrance, staring silently, not at us, but at something beyond us, past the counter, past the soda machines, like they were looking through the walls. I remember Jamal peeking out from the back kitchen window. Yo, who let the Victorian ghosts in, he joked. Rita snorted in her headset, whispering to me. They looked like they stepped out of a funeral in 1890. They really did. But I tried to brush it off. Maybe they were headed to a play or one of those historical reenactments. Still, they weren't ordering anything. They just stood there, and that's when the toddler, the one with the young couple, started screaming. Not crying, screaming. He pointed directly at the two women and shrieked, twisting in his high chair like he wanted to escape his own skin. They're wrong, he howled. His mother scooped him up, and his father looked at the women with narrowed eyes. Hey, y'all need help or something? He asked. No response. Then finally, the one with the braid spoke, but not to him. She looked at me. Her voice was too calm, too smooth, like she was reading from a script in her mind. Is the manager present? Carla stepped forward, uneasy. That would be me. What's going on? We've come to collect what was promised. The woman just smiled. What does that mean? Carla asked, confused. Insurance. You were notified, the woman in the bun added. Now, I know that sounds like nonsense, maybe even a scam. But what chilled me to the core was the fact that they both turned at the same exact moment to face a hallway in the back. The hallway that led to the old party room. That room had been sealed off for a year. The party room had mold damage, a leak from the roof, warped the floors. Corporate never fixed it, so it stayed locked up. The two women walked toward it, still without a sound. And that's when Carla yelled, "Hey, that's off limits." They didn't stop. They passed by me, and I swear to God, the air dropped like they carried cold with them. The ketchup packets on the tray I was holding turned stiff like they'd been frozen. Followed, so did Carla and Jamal, and I wish we hadn't. They reached the party room door, sealed with a heavy padlock. They stopped. Then, without keys, without touching the handle, the door clicked and opened. Inside the room was pitch black, except for the flickering overhead light. There were no footprints in the dust on the floor. Yet somehow they walked in. Me and Carla peeked inside, and I remember Jamal whispering behind us, "You'll see that?" The old birthday mural, the one with balloons and Ronald McDonald, was smeared like something had clawed through it. At the far end of the room, the two women now stood by the wall facing each other, and then they disappeared. Not in smoke, not in light, just gone like they'd never been there at all. Carla was visibly shaking. She rushed to call the district manager, and we closed early, locking every door and window. I stayed because I was too afraid to leave alone. Rita, annoyed, but freaked out too, remembered something. Wait, those dresses. Those exact ones. I saw them in some old photos once. We had this weird memorabilia box when we cleaned out the old manager's office last year. She went into the storage closet and came out with a cardboard box labeled history. Inside were old photos, some black and white, some yellowing, and there they were, two women, arm in arm, one smiling, one frowning, wearing those exact dresses. The photo was labeled McDonald's, opening day, 1912, staff guests. But that makes no sense. Jamal said. This place was built in the 80s. Carla went pale. No, the franchise was, but this land used to be something else. She grabbed her phone, looked up the property history. Turns out the McDonald's was built over the remains of a hotel that had burned down in 1912. 2 women died inside. Sisters, there was an article. Insurance dispute leads to fatal fire. 2 sisters, denied claim by owner perish after locking themselves in ballroom. The ballroom was now our party room. That night, I went home and barely slept. My cousin was over, and I must have still been shaken because he kept asking if I was okay. Then around 3 a.m., I found him standing at the window, staring outside. There. Back, he said. I ran to the window and saw nothing. Who? I asked. He just pointed. The old women. I asked them if they wanted to come inside, but they said they already had. Chills tore down my spine. He had never heard my story, not one detail. The next day, I called Carla. She told me she had dreams about them. In one, they asked her again, where is what was promised? 3 days later, the district manager came down and removed everything from the party room. Stripped the mural, sealed the door with steel. It's still shut to this day. A year passed. I left the job, went to college, moved on. But every once in a while, I still dream of that cold air, that soft, eerie voice. I looked up the sisters once more, found a blurry obituary with their names, Eleanor and Constance Blythe. They'd taken out an insurance policy on their hotel, but the company never paid. The owner, a man named Richard Hart, refused to process the claim. Guess who owned the land years later? The Hart family. They leased it to McDonald's in 1983. The same bloodline, the same betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, those women were never after me. They were after what was promised. And some debts don't expire, not even in death. I was 9 years old when this happened, back in the fall of 2014. At the time, I lived in a quiet little town called Maple Hollow. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone and life felt safe. My name's Jake Lansing, and I went to Cedar Hill Elementary School, just 2 blocks away from our house. Life was ordinary, safe. That was the year Slenderman stories were all over the internet. Creepy drawings, weird games, horror movies. Every kid at school knew who he was. At recess, we'd dare each other to summon him in the bathroom mirror. Some kids swore they'd seen him in the woods behind the school. I never believed it. Not really. It was just something to talk about while we traded Peckerman cards and waited for the bell to ring. But what happened one weekend in late October changed the way I thought about fear. Not the cartoon kind you feel while watching a scary movie, but the kind that gets under your skin and leaves you awake in the middle of the night. Listening, it started with a dream. That Saturday, my mum had taken me to the McDonald's across town. It was a new one they'd just built near the highway, bigger than the older one on Main Street. My dad was working a double shift at the lumber yard, so it was just me and her. I remember it so clearly. The smell of fries, the buzz of people, kids laughing inside the play place. I had a Happy Meal, chicken nuggets, and a small Sprite. We sat in a booth by the window. My mum was scrolling through Facebook on her phone, and I was staring out at the sky, watching the clouds shift in weird shapes. There was something about the light that evening, a kind of grayish-orange color that made everything look off, like the world was under a filter. I pointed it out to my mum, but she just smiled and said, "Looks like rain's coming." There was a man sitting by himself at a table across the room. He was tall, really tall, wearing a long black coat and a hat that shadowed most of his face. I don't remember him eating anything. He had a coffee cup in front of him, but it looked untouched. Every now and then, I'd glance back, and I swear he was looking at me. Just sitting there, not moving, watching. We left soon after. Mum didn't notice him at all, but I kept looking back at the window as we walked to the car. He hadn't moved, just sat there staring. That night, I had the worst nightmare of my life. In the dream, I was back at the McDonald's. It was empty, completely silent. The lights flickered, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. I was standing near the counter, alone. The soda machine behind me hissed suddenly, making me jump. Then, I turned and saw him, the tall man. Only this time, he wasn't wearing a coat or a hat. He was faceless, just pale, smooth skin where a face should be. His arms were too long, hanging by his sides like ropes, and he stood in the hallway that led to the bathrooms, blocking the exit. I couldn't move. My legs felt glued to the floor. Then he started walking toward me. Slow, careful steps. His head tilted slightly as if studying me, even though he had no eyes. I turned and ran, bursting into the play place. But the tunnel slides were warped, twisted, going nowhere. Just long black tubes leading into darkness. I screamed, and that's when I woke up, sweating. My heart pounding like a drum. It was around 2:30 in the morning. I remember because I looked at the glowing red numbers on the digital clock. I got out of bed and tiptoed to my parents' room. I hadn't done that in years, but I was so shaken, I whispered, "Mom, I had a bad dream. Can I sleep here?" She blinked, awake, nodded without a word, and scooted over. I curled up on the floor between the bed and the dresser with an old blanket. My dad was snoring softly, and Mom's breathing calmed me down a bit. I started drifting back to sleep. Then the fire alarm went off. It wasn't a soft beep. It was a full-on blaring siren that jolted all of us upright. My dad shot up, already grabbing the flashlight from the nightstand. "What the hell?" he muttered. They checked the kitchen. The oven was off. No smoke. No electrical smell. They checked every room. Nothing. No fire. No danger. Just that damn alarm going off for no reason. It took them a full minute to reset it. When they came back, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding my blanket like a shield. My mum put her hand on my forehead. "You okay, honey?" "Yeah," I whispered. I dreamed about the tall man again." She looked confused. "What tall man?" I didn't answer because how could I explain that the man from my nightmare looked exactly like the one from the McDonald's? They told me the fire alarm must have broken. Old wiring, maybe. But in all the 10 years we'd lived in that house, it had never gone off before. The next day, things got weirder. I stayed home, too scared to go anywhere. Every time I passed a window, I felt like I was being watched. I stopped and peeked through the blinds once and swore I saw someone across the street standing near the lamppost. He was gone when I looked. Again, around 6 p.m., my dad suggested picking up dinner. I begged him not to go back to that McDonald's. He raised an eyebrow. "Why not? You love their nuggets." "Please," I said. "Anywhere but there." So we went to Burger King instead. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the lamp on and stayed curled in bed with my DS playing Mario Kart, trying to drown out the silence. But sometime after midnight, the room got freezing cold, like you could see your breath cold. The alarm didn't go off this time. Instead, the hallway light flicked on by itself. I stared at the crack under the door, frozen. Then I heard footsteps. Not heavy ones, soft, careful ones. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. I didn't move. My hand was shaking so bad, I dropped the DS. Then slowly, the door creaked open. I screamed so loud, my parents rushed in seconds later. But by the time they flipped the lights on, the door was wide open and no one was there. After that, things settled down. Or at least they seemed to. The alarm never went off again. The lights stopped flickering. I started sleeping in my own bed again, though I always left the hallway light on. But something stayed with me. A feeling like I wasn't alone. Years later, I looked up the new McDonald's we'd gone to. It had closed permanently in 2017. There were rumors of strange incidents, lights not working right, a child going missing in the play place for 20 minutes, only to be found hiding under the slide, shaking. Employees quitting after seeing a tall man standing near the bathroom hallway. I never told anyone this, but I think that night, when I saw him in my dream, when the alarm went off, he came through. He followed me home, and part of me still wonders if he's waiting. I don't know if what I saw was real, or if it was just the mind of a child trying to make sense of things no child should have to deal with, but the fear was real, and even now, over 20 years later, I still get a strange ache in my stomach every time I hear the word peekaboo. I was 4 years old when it started. My name is Ivy, and I grew up in a small town in Georgia called Brook Hollow. A quiet place. One of those towns where nothing big ever happened until something did. My mother always said I was a sensitive kid. Sensitive to sounds, textures, shadows. I had night terrors, vivid dreams, and a habit of talking to empty corners. My dad, well, he wasn't around much. Worked late shifts at a lumber yard and mostly came home to sleep. But my mum and my older brother, Simon, they remembered everything. They say trauma does strange things to a kid's brain, but I swear this wasn't just trauma, it was something else. It all began during the spring of 2005. My mum had just started working the night shift at a nearby hospital to make ends meet, so evenings were always hectic. I was usually dropped off at this McDonald's on Elmwood Avenue while Simon finished up his tutoring next door. Back then, it was common in our town for parents to leave their kids in the play place for an hour or two. There were always staff watching through the big glass windows, and the restaurant was considered safe, familiar, but something was off about that McDonald's. I didn't have the words for it back then, but even as a toddler, I could feel it. The air felt thick, the kind that pressed down on your chest like a blanket soaked in water. And that play place, it always seemed darker than it should have been, even during the day, like the sunlight couldn't reach inside. The tunnels would creak when no one was in them. The ball pit would ripple like something had just sunk beneath. The surface. One day, the first time I remember seeing him, it was raining outside hard. The sky was muddy and bruised, and thunder cracked overhead as Simon helped me out of the car. "Just stay in the play place," he said, brushing water off my jacket. "I'll be next door, okay? Don't talk to strangers." I nodded and ran in. The place was nearly empty. A bored teen behind the counter gave me a weak smile before going back to the fries. I kicked off my shoes and crawled into the structure. Plastic. Tunnels lined with fogged-over windows and worn fabric mats. I was halfway through the red spiral tube when I heard it. A voice peak. A sharp, high-pitched squeal like a squeaky toy mixed with static. I froze, looked behind me. Nothing then. Again, this time, softer. Peekaboo. The voice came from the very end of the tunnel, where the darkness pulled like ink. I held my breath. Something shifted in the shadow. Then a face. Pale, thin, smeared with grime. Ragged hair like a dead squirrel on his head. His eyes were too big, cartoon-like, like they had been drawn on. He didn't crawl forward, he snapped. Forward face first, like something yanked him toward me. I screamed and scrambled backward, hitting my elbow on the plastic wall as I tumbled down the slide. The teen behind the counter didn't even look up. Simon rushed in a few minutes later. Breathless, I was curled up under the table, sobbing. I kept saying the same word over and over, peekaboo. That was just the beginning. My mum took me to a child psychologist not long after that. She thought the divorce was getting to me. My dad had officially moved out, and we'd started splitting time between houses. But whenever I slept at Mom's place, especially after a visit to that McDonald's, I'd wake up screaming, sometimes with scratch marks down my arms. Once my nose was bleeding so badly, the sheets looked like crime scene photos. I remember telling the therapist about him, peekaboo, that he only came when I was alone. That he lived in tunnels and doorways. That he would whisper peek until I answered. The therapist wrote it off as imaginary friend trauma. Gave my mum a list of bedtime rituals and calming exercises. None of it worked. Worse, I started doing things. According to Mum and Simon, whenever we drove past an empty house, I'd whisper, "That's where Peekaboo lives now." Or I'd ring a random doorbell and say, "Peekaboo will open the door." I have no memory of this. One night, I remember this part vividly. My mom let me sleep in the master bedroom while she was folding laundry in the living room. I'd been scared, crying about seeing Peekaboo in the hallway again. She promised to leave the bathroom light on so I wouldn't be afraid. But the light didn't help. I was lying there staring at the door to the bathroom when I felt the air change. It got icy cold even though it was summer. The soft hum of the house, the fridge, the dryer, the ceiling fan faded to a silence so deep it hurt my ears. And then I saw him standing in the bathroom doorway. Same ragged clothes, same twitchy hands like puppet strings were yanking him. But this time he smiled. It was wide and horrible and human-like in the wrong way. "Peekaboo," he whispered. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. He rushed at me, arms wide, mouth open, like he was going to swallow me whole. That's when I finally screamed so loud the neighbors called the cops. My mum ran in, found me curled at the edge of the bed, shaking. She rushed me to the hospital, thinking it was a seizure. It wasn't. Things calmed down a bit after we moved. My mum finally left that house, and with it the McDonald's on Elmwood. We started going to a different one, newer, cleaner, with no play place. I stopped seeing Peekaboo. The dreams faded. The scratches disappeared. But the fear never left. When I was 10, I asked my mom about the old house. About the play place. About the moaning I thought I used to hear from under my bed. She looked at me, serious, more serious than I'd ever seen her, and said, "That house. Ivy, that house wasn't right. I used to hear things too. Something breathing beneath the floor. Sometimes moaning, sometimes growling. It wasn't just you." I asked if she ever saw Peekaboo. She didn't answer right away, but eventually she nodded. "Once," she whispered. "I only saw it one time. After midnight, I saw something standing in the hallway. I thought it was you, but it wasn't you." I closed my eyes and said a prayer. When I looked again, it was gone. Ever since then, I can't walk past a McDonald's play place without feeling sick to my stomach. Last year, I went back to that place. I'm in my 20s now, but I really wanted to see the old spot again. I was curious, even though it scared me. The McDonald's was still there, but it looked older and more broken down. The play place looked smaller now. The colors had faded from the sun and time. But the moment I walked inside, that heavy feeling came back. It felt like something was watching me and waiting. I bought a small coffee and sat by the window. Then I heard it coming from the plastic tunnel. The sound was muffled, high pitch and scratchy. Pick. I didn't stay around to hear more. I don't know what this thing called Peekaboo really is. Is it a ghost? Am I seeing things that aren't there? Is it something that feeds on sadness and hurt from a broken family? Or maybe some places that are meant for kids, laughter, hide dark shadows that we're not supposed to see. All I know is this. If you ever hear a voice in the tunnel saying pick, don't answer back. Because he never really goes away. He just waits for someone new to play with. I wasn't planning to go out that night. It was one of those early fall Saturday nights where the sky couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or not. The wind felt cold, like winter was trying to come early. It was already getting dark by 6 o'clock at night. My parents had driven to Leeds to visit my grandma, who had broken her hip the week before. They wouldn't be back until midnight, maybe later. They trusted me to take care of the house. I was 16 years old. They thought I was old enough to babysit, but not old enough to go out without getting a big speech about being careful. I was lying on the couch in my sweatpants and my oldest hoodie. I was half watching some crime show on Netflix while looking at TikTok on my phone. I wasn't just bored, I felt empty and grey. That kind of feeling where you want to do something just to break the quiet, even if it's something dumb. That's when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Tasha. "Want to go to McDonald's? Benji has been asking me for chicken nuggets all day." I texted back, "Can I be bothered? I'm kind of warm and cozy in bed right now." Tasha replied, "I'm already walking there. Don't make me sit with him alone." I laughed, sighed, and sat up. It was only 2 blocks away, just past the grocery store. And over the small traffic circle, the McDonald's on High Street was the closest one in our little town in Yorkshire called Wetherby. It wasn't a dangerous place. Mostly families, old people, and people driving through on their way to bigger cities. I called my mum. She answered after 2 rings. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," I said casually. "Tasha and Benji are going to McDonald's. Is it okay if I meet them there?" There was a pause. "It's already dark outside. It's only 7 o'clock, I said. "And I have pepper spray. I'll be fine. You know I don't like you walking around alone after the sun goes down. It's literally 2 streets away. I'll call you when I get there and when I'm coming back home." Another pause. She sighed. "All right. But keep your phone on and text me if anything seems weird. Promise me. I promise. The McDonald's was packed like always. Little kids in school uniforms were yelling across tables. Delivery drivers were shouting order numbers at the pickup counter. A group of teenagers were hogging the self-order screens while playing music too. Loud from a portable speaker, Tasha saw me first and waved from the far corner near the window. Her little brother Benji was already halfway through eating large fries with ketchup on his cheek. I slid into the booth next to them. You took your time, Tasha said. You're lucky I like you. We ordered food, a Big Mac meal for me, a McChicken for her, and nuggets for Benji. We ate, we joked around, we talked about people we knew. For the first time all day, I wasn't thinking about how boring my weekend was. I swear to God, Tasha was saying with her mouth full of fries, if Mr. Dawes gives us another pop quiz on Monday, I'm going to scream. He's just bitter because no one showed up to his lunchtime chess club, I said, laughing. I showed up once, said Benji. You also threw up in the chess bin, Tasha reminded him. We all laughed. I was full, maybe too full. I had eaten most of my fries before starting on my Big Mac. I picked it up, then stopped. Maybe I'd save it for later. A midnight snack, maybe. That's when I noticed him. A man who was clearly homeless was standing near the trash can by the door. He looked around 60 years old, maybe older, but life had made him look really old. His clothes were covered in dried mud, and his long grey beard was tangled like old rope. He walked over to our table slowly, like each step hurt him. If you're not going to eat that, he said, pointing at my Big Mac still in its box, could I have it? His voice was rough and gravelly, like he had been coughing for years. I blinked. I was actually going to take it home. He didn't move. His eyes stayed, looking at mine. There was no anger, just this empty, hopeless, begging look that made my stomach feel sick. Tasha started reaching into her bag. We can buy you something. I stopped her. You don't have to, Tash. Then, looking back at the man, I said loud enough for other people to hear. Why don't you get a job instead of begging? His face looked sad and hurt. I wasn't even angry. I don't know why I said it like that. Maybe it was the weird tension I felt. Maybe I was trying to seem tough. Or maybe I was just being mean without realizing it. I'm sorry, he said quietly, almost whispering. He stepped back just as one of the McDonald's workers walked by. I used that chance to wave her over. He's bothering us, I said. 2 minutes later, a security guard came over. He was young, maybe in his early 20s, and didn't look happy about having to kick someone out. Still, he walked up to the old man and said something quietly. The man tried to speak, maybe to explain, but before we knew it, the guard grabbed him by the arm and dragged him toward the exit. Outside, we watched through the window as the old man stumbled and fell face first onto the sidewalk. His mouth hit the curb with a sick cracking sound. I saw something red, maybe his tooth. I flinched, but didn't move. That was harsh, Tasha said, staring at me. He shouldn't have come to our table, I said, trying to defend myself. She didn't reply. We stayed for another hour. Benji got a McFlurry. We talked about an upcoming school trip. The weird feeling from earlier mostly went away. When we got up to leave, Tasha said, "Want us to walk you home? Dad's picking us up. He can give you a ride. My mum has already called." Me twice, I said, pulling my hoodie over my head. It's only 5 minutes. I'll just walk. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. We hugged. I waved at Benji. The automatic doors opened behind me and I stepped out into the cool night. The street was emptier now. Just a few cars driving past and the occasional bike rider with a blinking red light. I had one earbud in with music playing. Low, just enough to keep the silence from feeling too heavy. That's when something hit me hard. A rock, or something like it, slammed into the back of my head. I stumbled forward, my hand flying up to touch the spot. My fingers came back wet with blood. Pain shot through my skull. Confused and dizzy, I turned around and saw him, the old man, the same one from McDonald's. Except now he was hunched over, near a streetlight, his mouth bloody with one tooth missing. His eyes were blazing with anger. Not sadness this time, but something twisted and mean. I backed up. "Hey," What the hell? He didn't speak. Then he ran at me faster than I expected. Faster than he should have been able to. He grabbed me by the shoulders and started shaking me violently. "Help," I screamed. "Somebody help me." My voice cracked. My knees buckled. I could smell him, sour sweat, rot, and stale beer. His spit sprayed my face as he screamed something I couldn't understand. I whimpered, I'm sorry, please, stop." Then he pushed me hard. I hit the pavement, scraping my palms. I crawled backward, crying, with tears blurring my vision. He stood still now, watching me. Not chasing, not moving, just watching and laughing. A dry, rough laugh that echoed down the street like nails on a chalkboard. I got up and ran. I burst through the front door, locked it, and collapsed in the hallway. I was sobbing, breathing hard, covered in sweat and dirt and blood from the back of my head. I called my mum. I didn't even manage to say a full sentence. Just broken sobs and a few scared words. He found me. He hit me. I didn't know he'd follow me. They drove back right away. It took almost an hour. I sat curled up in the corner of the living room the whole time, staring at the window like he might appear there, grinning with his bloody mouth. He didn't single quotes police came later that night. I told them what happened. They took me to the hospital for a scan. I had a mild concussion but didn't need stitches. They never found him. 14 years later, I'm 30 now, living in London. I have a good job, a partner, and my own apartment. And still, every time I see a homeless person, something in me jumps. A memory, a warning, a lesson. I give them food now, always. Sometimes money, sometimes just a hot coffee. Not because I'm a perfect person, but because I remember how one cruel sentence turned a hungry stranger into something else. A monster that I created. And every time I walk past someone sleeping on the street, I wonder, what if I had just given him the burger? I had always been the cool uncle in the family. You know the type. Video game nights, soda before dinner, way too many movie marathons, and no lectures about screen time. My sister Monica is the opposite. She's a single mom with a high-pressure sales job and strict rules for raising kids. Her son Alex is 11 years old, smart, sensitive, and polite. When she called me last week asking if I could watch Alex while she flew to Dallas for a 5-day work training, I didn't even think twice. I was on summer break from teaching high school history, so I had the time. And honestly, I missed the kid. We had a great week. We went to the arcade, saw a new superhero movie, and stayed up way past any reasonable bedtime playing Nintendo Switch. On our last day together, Friday, I promised him we'd get burgers and fries before Monica picked him up from the airport. He didn't even have to think. "Can we go to McDonald's?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "Do you want a Happy Meal like old times?" He grinned. "Only if it comes with a toy." We went to a McDonald's, a few miles away from my house in Greystone, New Hampshire. It wasn't one of the newer, fancy ones. This one still had the cracked fake leather booths and flickering lights, but Alex liked it more. He said it felt more real. It was packed. I remember thinking it was strange, for 3:30 in the afternoon on a weekday. School had just let out, so the place was full of teenagers, kids, parents, and a few older people drinking coffee alone. We stood in line and ordered our food, 2 quarter-pounder burgers, large fries, a Happy Meal with apple slices and chocolate milk. I picked up the tray, and as I looked around for an empty table, Alex tugged on my sleeve. "There," he pointed. "That booth is open." It wasn't. Not completely. A man was already sitting there on one side, sipping a small coffee. He was middle-aged, pale, and wore a beige raincoat even though it hadn't rained all week. What I noticed right away was a long red line down his right cheek, a fresh cut that was still shiny. "He's sitting there," I said. "He's just on one side." Alex replied, "There's room." I wasn't sure, but then the guy looked up at us and gave a small nod. "Go ahead," he said. "Plenty of space." So we sat down. I took the seat next to Alex, across from the man. We started eating our food. Alex tore open his Happy Meal box with the same excitement he had when he was 5. "Let's see what toy you got," I said, smiling. He pulled out a yellow minion toy. The kind that spins if you press its head. The man leaned in slightly, his eyes lighting up. "I remember these," he said. "They used to be better, more detailed. Back then, each one was unique and special." Alex looked up at him. "Why did they stop making those?" The man smiled, but it was too wide. "Well," he said, "some people thought they were wrong." "Wrong how?" Alex asked, his voice high with curiosity. I sipped my Coke and half listened, thinking he was about to say something about choking dangers or toxic paint. Instead, the man slipped his hand into his coat pocket. His fingers wrestled with something. Inside, I heard the crinkle of a bag, thick paper or plastic. "Let me show you," he said quietly, as though we were sharing some secret. Alex leaned forward, eager. "What is it?" he asked. The man pulled out a crumpled brown paper bag, the kind you'd get from a street food vendor. He placed it carefully on the table between us, like it was fragile. "Check this out," he said. Out came a toy, but it was nothing like the licensed plastic figures you'd expect in a Happy Meal. It was about the size of a softball, shaped like a jellyfish. Its see-through dome shimmered like soap bubbles. Droopy, rubbery tentacles hung from underneath. And it had a face. Yes, it had a face that was strangely human. It wasn't smiling or frowning, just staring. It had blank, glassy eyes, and a mouth that looked like it was sewn shut, but not like a cartoon. More like someone had drawn it on. Real skin. Alex pulled back slightly. "Whoa, that's weird." The man beamed. "Isn't it amazing? Go ahead, touch it. The texture is like nothing else." Now, I was fully alert. The way he said it, there was something heavy in his voice, like he was inviting something else to happen. I put my hand on Alex's shoulder. "Hey buddy, don't touch that." The man tilted his head. "It's just a toy. Kids love toys," he added. I looked at him straight in the eye. "He doesn't need to touch anything that came out of your pocket." The man's grin didn't fade. "You think I'm dangerous?" he asked, more amused than upset. "I think you need to leave," I said in a low, firm voice. "Right now." He leaned across the table so close I could smell stale peppermint on his breath. "What are you going to do?" he asked softly. "Ban me from McDonald's." I clenched my fists. I was about to get up and hit him if I had to, but he stood up first. He took his jellyfish toy and put it back in the bag. No rush, no panic, just a sick sort of calm as he walked away. He looked over his shoulder. "Some toys stick with you," he said. "Even when you grow up, Alex." Alex and I didn't finish our food. I packed it in to-go boxes and told him we'd eat in the car. "Uncle Mason," he whispered as we got up. "That guy was scary." "I know, buddy," I said, putting a hand on his back. "He's gone now, let's go." At the counter, I told the manager, a bored-look college kid, about the man and his weird behavior. The guy just shrugged. "Creeps are everywhere, man. He didn't actually do anything, right?" He showed a kid a messed up toy and told him to touch it. I snapped. "But he didn't actually do anything, right?" The manager repeated. I didn't answer. We got into my car. Alex buckled his seatbelt and I turned the key. Then a shadow crossed my driver's side window and a slam shook the glass. It was him. His hand was flat against the glass. Alex let out a cry. I reached for my phone, ready to call 911. The man stared at us with unblinking eyes. Then he slowly took the jellyfish toy, held it up to his tongue, and dragged it up, licking it from bottom to top. Alex sobbed. I shouted through the window, "Get the hell away from us." I didn't wait. I put the car in reverse and drove out of the parking lot as fast as I could. That night, Alex barely spoke. I tucked him in on the couch and turned on a movie, but he didn't watch it. He kept looking at the window. I stayed up most of the night, listening for noises. Nothing came. No sign of the man. But I couldn't shake the image of his face, calm, cruel, and happy about our fear. In the morning, I dropped Alex off at the airport. Monica met us there, and though Alex didn't say a word about what happened, I pulled her aside and told her everything. I reported what happened to the Greystone police later that day. They were polite but didn't seem to care much. He didn't touch the boy or threaten you directly, one officer said. Creepy, yes. Criminal, not really. He stalked us, I argued. He licked a toy in front of him. He was targeting us. Could have been a prank, one officer said. People are weird. They took a statement. That was it. A few days later, Monica called. Alex is still scared, she said. He asked me if jellyfish live in people's pockets. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, I should have seen the warning signs earlier. It's not your fault, she said. But that toy, are you sure it wasn't some custom-made thing? I didn't know. I still don't. I've driven back to that McDonald's since then. I've sat in the same booth and watched the people. No sign of the man. But every now and then, I swear, I see a kid walking out with a Happy Meal and a toy that looks wrong. A little too detailed, a little too strange. I don't know who that man was or where he got that toy, but I know what I felt. And if you ever see a jellyfish with a human face in a paper bag, don't touch it. Don't let your kid touch it. Just leave. I never really liked clowns. Not when I was a kid, and especially not now, after everything that happened. I grew up in a town called Henderson Valley, about 20 minutes outside Milwaukee. It was a quiet place, really plain. The kind of town where, if you work at the same gas station or restaurant long enough, people start to think of you as part of the furniture. I took whatever job I could get after community. College didn't work out. I eventually got a job at a local burger place called Denny's Grill. Spot our town's version of McDonald's. 6 months into working there, the manager asked if I wanted to play Danny the Griller, our version of Ronald McDonald, for birthday parties and weekend events. The regular guy had quit, and I was tall, skinny, and really needed the overtime money. I hated it, but it paid better than minimum wage. And after rent, groceries, and gas, I couldn't say no, so I became a clown. Red wig, yellow jumpsuit, oversized shoes, painted smile. I stood outside the drive-thru on weekends holding balloons and waving at cars. Most kids laughed or ran away. The job was awkward, hot, and weirdly embarrassing. But it paid money. The job made me feel like a joke, but I was used to people laughing at me. High school had been rough. I was never the popular guy, never the athlete. I was just Jack Turner, the tall, quiet kid who drew comics in the back of the classroom. I thought once I graduated, things would change. But real life had a way of making you humble really fast. So there I was, 23 years old, dressed as a clown, handing out balloons in a parking lot. That night, everything went to hell. It was a Thursday night in October, just cold enough that your fingers hurt without gloves. The store closed at 10 p.m., and it was 9:50. The dining area had emptied and the drive-thru had slowed down. I hadn't sat down in 4 hours. I hadn't even gone to the bathroom. So I told my co-worker Rachel, who was working the front counter, that I'd be right back. By the time I came back, the dining area was still empty, but Rachel looked pale. "Hey," she whispered, "some woman came in asking for you." I was still fixing. The red wig, me. "Yeah," she said she was looking for the clown, for Danny. I thought it was just another last-minute customer wanting a picture for their kid. I rolled my eyes. "Where is she?" Rachel pointed toward the exit doors. She said she'd come back in. "She's outside. She's been standing there for a while. Didn't order anything." I stepped outside, expecting a tired mum with a whiny toddler. But what I saw instead made the hair on my arms stand up. She was standing just beyond the glass doors. She was thin, probably late 40s, wearing an old cardigan with holes in the sleeves. Her back was to me, and she was staring straight up at the night sky, smiling like she'd just seen fireworks. Something about that position, that stillness, felt wrong. I cleared my throat. "Ma'am, you were looking for me." She turned slowly, like her neck was fighting against it. When our eyes met, a wave of discomfort rushed through me. Her eyes were too wide. Her pupils didn't quite focus right. She blinked once, twice. Then her voice came out soft but creepy. "My son, he wanted a photo with you. He loves Danny." I looked around the empty parking lot. Where is he?" She paused as if the question surprised her. "Who?" she asked. "Your son." A shadow passed over her face. Her smile went away. "Oh," He's sick. He couldn't come. But if you could come with me, he's waiting. Just a quick photo. I'll pay you. I wasn't sure what to do. The woman clearly wasn't well. But then again, I was broke and behind on rent. Payday wasn't until Monday. I'll give you $50, she said, reading my silence. I nodded reluctantly. Okay, let me grab my things. I went inside, clocked out, and told Rachel I had to do a last-minute side job. She asked if I was sure. I said, yeah, it'll be quick. We walked together through Henderson Valley, past the closed post office, past the little library. Houses started getting farther apart. Her footsteps were silent. Mine echoed. She didn't speak once the entire time. After 10 minutes, I realized we weren't heading toward the houses anymore. We were heading out of town. The sidewalk had ended. Now we were walking on gravel. Where exactly do you live? I asked. She stopped and turned, looking confused. I don't, I blinked. Then where's your son? Her smile came back like a light switch being flipped. He's waiting at the cemetery. My stomach turned. I stopped walking. The cemetery, yes, just ahead. You said he was sick, not ... gone. She didn't respond. She just kept walking. I thought about turning back, but then I thought, I'm 6'0". She's barely 5'5", probably under 100 pounds. She can't hurt me. Besides, I needed the cash. And some part of me felt sorry for her. The cemetery gate was rusted and squeaked as she pushed it open. I could hear the wind moving through trees like whispers. She moved quickly now, as if she knew exactly where she was going. We stopped at a small headstone near the back fence. It was cleaner than the rest, freshly washed. Toys and plastic flowers decorated the bottom. The name read, Michael Tanner, 2014 to 2021. Our little comedian, always smiling. I froze. My son, she said softly. He loved jokes. Will you tell him one? I stared at her. The painted smile on my face suddenly felt sickening. She waited, her face hopeful. I could see tears forming but not quite falling. It was easier to just go along with it, so I told a dumb joke. Something about a burger and a milkshake. Silence followed. Then came a giggle. I swear to God, I heard it. A child's giggle, soft and quick. I felt my knees get weak. She turned to me with that doll-like stare, and she laughed, her own chuckle rising, copying a child's laugh. The sound bounced off the headstones and filled the air like a taunt. I couldn't take it anymore. I backed away. I think I need to go. She kept laughing. Then her face dropped. Wait, Michael wants a picture. No, I'm sorry. I have to go now. Wait, she cried out. He's not done. He's not ready. She grabbed my sleeve, but I pulled away. Her voice followed me into the dark. Every child wants a photo with Danny the Griller, don't they? I didn't. Run. I walked fast. My clown shoes made me trip twice. I didn't look back until I reached the main road. She never followed. I quit 2 days later. I couldn't stand putting on that wig again. Rachel said the woman never came back, but I kept expecting her to appear at the window, at the drive-thru outside my apartment. Some nights I'd wake up and hear giggling outside. Just once, always faint. 3 months later, the town newspaper ran a story. Grieving mother arrested after series of harassment reports near Henderson Cemetery. The article mentioned a woman named Marilyn Tanner whose son Michael had died 2 years earlier in a biking accident. Apparently, she'd been seen several times, wandering near fast food restaurants, trying to convince workers to come meet her. Some followed her. Most walked away. None reported it until a teenager from Derry Den told his manager. The last line in the article made my blood run cold. Authorities found several photos near the boy's grave. Most were water damaged, but in one, a man in a red wig and yellow costume stands beside the headstone, looking directly at the camera. His face is painted with a smile, but his eyes are full of fear. I never took that photo, or at least I don't remember taking it. But I saw the picture. It was me, dressed as Danny the Griller, and I was holding a balloon next to a grave. And behind me, just barely visible, was the shadow of a small child smiling.